Hello everyone and welcome. My name is John Preston Smith. I'm the author of 14,000 Dogs Later, My Life with Dogs and What I've Learned, and a book entitled The Bog, The Legend of Man's Best Friend. This is the fifth in a series of videos about the dogs that have been my personal best friends and what I have learned from each one of those canine critters. Today I want to tell you about Tagore, a Doberman Pinscher owned in the early years of my marriage with Emma Sue, when we were forming wonderful relationships in West Virginia and Ohio. He was with me during the tragedy on the campus of Kent State University when I started my boarding and training business here in Huntington, and he was the dog that forced me into one of the most difficult decisions in all my years of working with dogs. Shortly after Emma Sue and I were married, we moved to Canton, Ohio, where Emma Sue taught in the Canton South School District, and I worked in public relations for Kent State University in Kent, Ohio. At that time, Chadwick, who I told you about in last week's video, was still living. But after meeting friends who owned Dobermans, Emma Sue and I were drawn to that breed like Labradors to water. We learned about Dobermans through Molly and Joe Israel, who owned an incredible male Dobie by the name of Omar. And it so happens that Omar had sired a litter, and when Emma Sue and I saw those pups, we were hooked. Our choice was a puppy with legs as wobbly as a newborn colt, as black as West Virginia coal dust, and with paws the size of Clydesdales. Shortly thereafter, Emma Sue, Molly, and Joe and I, along with friends Jeff and Stephanie, formed the Hall of Fame Doberman Pinscher Club in Canton, Ohio. Tagore and Chadwick became great friends, and I, wanting to continue obedience classes, convinced Emma Sue that an 11-acre farm in Hartville, Ohio was the perfect answer. Well, the land was the perfect answer, not so much the house. But we made do, met wonderful new friends in Joe and Joanne Bixler and their 4 children. We advertised obedience training classes in that small town newspaper, and we were overwhelmed with the response. Tagore was a participant in my first class, learning along with a cross-section of other dogs. But in addition to sit, stay, down, heel, and come, we began to notice, before he was 6 months of age, a faint glimmer of his protective nature. He was never a frisky pup, and he was not haughty. But early in his life, he was observant. He was a watcher. And though I was his alpha, he was Emma Sue's guardian. I remember when he was not yet a year old, there was an evening I had to work late, and a friend of ours came to visit us at the farm. Even though Tagore knew and recognized our friend, he would not allow Emma Sue to open the door. He had decided on his own, if I had to be away, there was no need for another man to visit our home. I worked at Kent State University at that time and often took Tagore with me to the office. A frowned upon practice, but best friends take chances, don't they? Tagore became well known around the campus, and since he was well behaved, I often took him to various campus meetings. The week leading up to the killing of 4 students on the campus of Kent State University by the Ohio National Guard in 1970, he was my constant companion, and as Director of Radio TV Information, I was the youngest member of the administrative staff. I basically lived at the university during that time, following student rallies in downtown Kent, following the student sit-ins on the campus, and observing the burning of the ROTC building, and ultimately the killing of 4 students on our campus. The year after the killings, when Emma Sue and I returned to Huntington, West Virginia, and my new life as owner and operator of Blue Barn Kennels, Tagore was the star in obedience classes we held almost every night of the week. In 1971, Tagore received the Award of Canine Distinction issued by Dog World magazine for his superior performance in obedience trials. However, there is not a happy ending to this story. In 1972, when my daughter was playpen age, she was playfully swinging a toy that hit Tagore in the head as he was walking past her playpen. Instinctively, without thought, on impulse, he nipped at her. The next day I had him put down. It was one of the most difficult decisions I have ever made regarding dogs. However, at that time I was training hundreds of handlers and their dogs on various levels of dog obedience. Oftentimes I had to deal with the question of dogs that bite. And not only the question, but I had to deal with dogs that bite. Fear biters, sneak biters, dogs bred for fighting, breeds with belligerent tendencies, dogs of all breeds that exhibited aggressive tendencies as pups. In many cases, I believe a problem dog can be retrained, but remember, in training, you do not change a dog's disposition, you control it. There is, however, one dog bite event about which I have always maintained a staunch stance, and that is when a dog bites a child. And so on that day many years ago, I could have easily rationalized and reasoned that in that one instance I would let Tagore's mistake pass, surmising it to be a nip, not a bite, an accident, not a purposeful action, a one-time event that would never happen again. But I also knew that I would have been a fraud as a dog trainer to have done so. So what did I learn from Tagore? What did he teach me? He taught me one of the most difficult lessons that you and I have to deal with. We have power over the life of our dogs, but we also have the responsibility of using that power appropriately. Tagore was a best friend, a guardian, and a member of my family, and I still remember him as if he were at my side today. Until my next episode of Dogs I Remember, please consider purchasing my book, The Bog, The Legend of Man's Best Friend. It's a story about the spiritual connection between man and his dog, and all proceeds benefit our local children's hospital. In closing, please remember that everybody needs a dog, and every dog needs somebody. You take care.